Hello, dear friends. I'm Carly Wharton, and welcome. Welcome to my front porch. Welcome to my channel. I could not be more excited that you're here. I'm practicing this thing where I breathe while I talk. If I seem a little awkward with it, that's because it's very new. I have such a habit of running myself completely out of oxygen as I say what I feel like I need to say so quickly. And as I practice this being in my words, where it's more than just getting to the point, it's about the experience of what I'm doing and not just letting my words be a means to an end, but to float on them in the joyful satisfaction that it is to verbalize, to express ourselves. You know, a lot of people do it through music or writing or dancing or mechanics of some sort. And for me, it's always been the spoken word. I love talking so much that I get going so fast. And a lot of times I'll run myself right off a cliff with like, you're going so fast. And before you know it, you're saying things and you're like, what am I saying? Dolly, my girlfriend, she'll ask me sometimes, do you even know what you're saying? And every time she calls it, like I have to say, no, I don't. I'm just talking to talk. And here on my Owning Authenticity channel and in all of my Owning Authenticity content, I don't ever just want to be talking just to talk. That's Stella, by the way. She's a good girl. She is. She is one of the many, one of the 4 animals that live here with me at the Ponderosa. Me and the animals, that's pretty much it. Our little commune of like-minded souls. Yeah, finding what works best for me. That's been a lifelong process and one that I continue to get better and better at. And in the pursuit of doing that, I've created this YouTube channel. I have a podcast. I follow my inspiration on a daily basis and I see where that takes me. And it's taken me a lot of fun places. I have to just say that as an overarching thing. Recently, it led me to create a new series, actually 2 new series, one of them called Simplifying Natal Charts, all about astrology and natal charts and how to break that down into bite-sized pieces. And one of those videos got a comment from one of my subscribers. And he said, this looks really interesting. How did you decide to name your channel Owning Authenticity? It took me 4 days to respond to his comment. I saw it as soon as he left it. But again, I don't ever really, I'm eating my hair. I don't want to be just talking to talk. I want to say what I mean. I want to say what I truly feel, what is truly a representation of me. And after 4 days of sitting with this question, why did I name my practice, really, not just my channel? Why did I name it Owning Authenticity? What does that mean to me? And I've felt my way into how to answer that question. At this point, practicing owning authenticity feels like my lifestyle. It feels like my belief system, my religion, my church. There's another animal, that's Spicy Nug. She's here too. She's the most wild of all the animals at the menagerie. She regularly is hunting and catching things she keeps us natural and free and wild and connected to our animal spirit. So they all play their different role, as you can see. My mentors, my life coaches, my animals, I learn a lot from them. Where was I? Not talking just to talk. I'm communicating my authentic truth. And that's really where this all started. This whole concept of owning authenticity started with a yearly mantra. I've been doing this for about 4 years. Each year I pick a different mantra. The very first year it was very simple. I had a journal that said best year ever on the cover, and it was 2017, best year ever. And it went on from there. And so 2021, at the beginning of this year, I set the mantra, the year of speaking truth. That's what I wanted. That's what I was leaning for in my life at that point, was finding my voice. That's Scooby. That's another animal. Finding my voice and allowing myself to speak my truth, allowing myself to stand up for myself. I am historically a very passive person, and so asserting myself for my own individual needs and standing up for myself in the face of someone who disagrees with me, these were things that I deemed weaknesses in myself. And that's where I had gotten in my evolution in this life. And so at the beginning of this year, my epiphany, my direction was to speak my truth, to spend a year focusing every morning, every day into this mantra of the year of speaking truth, and to see where that path would take me. And it's been a joy. It's been kind of a mind fuck, if you will, in that the process of speaking my truth was nothing like what I thought it would be. There were so many stages along the way that had nothing to do with speaking my truth. There were all of these other like prerequisites, and it's been an absolute joy. And through the twists and turns along the way, it led to owning authenticity. So that's the story I'm here to tell, was the twists and turns of this year of speaking my truth. Just know in the end that it led to me coming up with this name. And if you want to know more, stick around, because I'm about to tell you. That bird's excited. He knows what's coming. Scooby, she's on the move. She's constantly in motion. She's very active. There she goes. She laid down. She relaxed. I got 3 of them laying. Nugget, and Scooby, and Stella. That's where they are. Lola, she's inside. Otherwise, I'm sure she'd be like planted right here. So, so this year of speaking truth, and how I work on integrating my mantra, whatever it is. I journal every morning as like my focus setting for the day. And so at the top of the page, I write the date and the day of the week, and 2021, the year of speaking truth. And that's it. I don't try to like really grab a hold of it and like force it into my brain. I just kind of more like a subliminal message, like every single morning, re-exposing myself to this idea, this concept of speaking my truth, and bringing it to the forefront of my mind just for that little second, and then move on with my journaling, my gratitude. A whole bunch of birds, crows. I don't think they're crows. They're bigger than that. But they found each other. It's like a whole flock. They called out. Oh, that's such a beautiful metaphor. This is like speaking of authenticity. Welcome to my world. Such a beautiful metaphor. That bird, he just sat there and he squawked and squawked and squawked and squawked for what felt like way longer than he should have, in my opinion. And then here comes these other 3 birds just like swooping, and he took off from the tree, and all 4 of them went off together. And his little flock, they found him because he squawked, because he was willing to speak his truth. He was willing to activate his voice and make a sound in the world. And his flock just swooped right in and picked him up, and off they went. And he's not squawking anymore. He's happy and he's flying with his people. Um, that is such a beautiful metaphor for exactly what I'm talking about in this whole concept of being willing to speak my truth. And I think the reason, kind of what was bringing me to this place, was I had I had intellectually incorporated the idea that, like, let your freak flag fly kind of thing, and, like, shine your weirdness out in the world and let your fellow weirdos find you. uh it makes total sense to me that that is exactly how it works, and I want to do that, but I'm holding myself back. I'm scared. At that point, at the beginning of this year, 2021, um I did have a YouTube channel, but I was only posting events on it. I wasn't making videos like this. And I hadn't started my podcasts yet, too, that I started this year. So I really thought on a deeper level, like, I want to shine my weirdness out into the world so that people who are weird like me can come and be around and can say, like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. Like, I'm not as weird as I thought I was. Like, I was doing a session with somebody a couple days ago, and they were like, this helps me so much. I always thought I was so weird. And I was like, you are, but it's awesome. It's like the best thing that there ever was, to be weird and to be surrounded by fellow weirdos. And so that's what I wanted. I wanted to shine my light out into the world so that my like-minded people could gravitate towards me. And yet I was scared. I was scared to shine my light out into the world because I was afraid of the people who weren't my people finding me and then saying harsh things. And my skin is like this thick, and yeah, I am sensitive on the inside, very highly sensitive on the inside and the outside, for that matter. It's kind of an all of the above situation. So that fear was like really holding me back, and that was very much where I was. I don't do well with that. I have a history of, like, when I'm afraid of something, that's usually pointing directly towards what I need to do. So facing fears is a theme in my experience, and this was no different. So out of the desire to face that fear, I was given this mantra of the year of speaking truth, and every morning exposing myself to this idea. It only took a couple weeks before the journey was already off to a start that I, like, totally did not expect, where I originally thought the concept, like, I wanted to shine my weird light out into the world, and I wanted my fellow weirdos to find me. Like, I thought I was rock solid on my truth. I just needed to be saying it out loud. And pretty much a couple weeks into it, I realized I don't know my truth as well as I thought I did. And that's a problem, because if you don't know what it is, you cannot say it out loud. Like, it's impossible. Uh, so you have to, like, take a step back, or I had to take a step back and feel more authentically into what is true for me. And that meant this, like, massive shift inward for finding my inner authority. And inner authority is an actual concept in human design, which was very convenient to read about, that I have emotional authority. But I figured that out a while before I found human design, where when I wanted to speak my truth, even just, like, giving myself the permission to do that, like looking for opportunities to speak my truth, I found that, like, I would find those opportunities and realize that in that moment, what was actually stopping me from speaking my truth was that I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I wanted to say. I didn't have emotional clarity to be able to speak what was true for me. I just flat out didn't know. And I had come far enough to have a general idea of my truth, right? Like it's a vague picture, and this year has been about making it detailed. And that detailed picture is what allows me to speak my truth at this point, almost 9 months into practicing speaking truth. This is where this video is coming from of it's not only a willingness to allow yourself to speak truth, but a depth of knowledge of what is the truth. And so that was very much the first step, was like, okay, but what is true for Carly, in this particular moment? And I found I wasn't doing as good of a job as I could have been, that I am now, at finding my own emotional clarity and taking the time to allow that process to unfold. Because a lot of times, like, I was moving on and making decisions with my head or with my gut or whatever. And for me personally, it was leading me to a lot of overwhelm, a lot of burnout, a lot of like riding on other people's energy, soaking up their energy and being like, yeah, that sounds good, and just going with it instead of letting myself, like in the case of answering the guy's question, it takes 4 days to like get some emotional clarity. So it's not the most convenient way to try to make a decision, especially if you're in a hurry. And so knowing my truth for me required slowing down and letting myself feel into my inner world and feel the dust settle in the stillness that's created when I turn inward. And if I wait long enough, the dust will settle and I will know my truth. And I realized through this year of speaking truth that I was almost never letting the dust settle on what was true for me. And all of a sudden, speaking my truth felt a lot more complicated because it meant shifting my whole lifestyle. Like, for real. I couldn't be where I am right now, 9 months later, if I hadn't shifted my entire lifestyle. And when I say that, one of the first truths that I realized when I allowed myself to slow down and feel into my emotional authority and what was true for me was that one of my best friends was toxic for me as an individual at this point in time, juncture in space. This person is toxic for me, and I need to back away from the friendship. And emotionally, I knew that. My intuition, my emotion, my inner authority said, don't answer her phone calls. Like, stop responding, let it go. Like, let this go. It is like you have your hand on a hot stove. This is hurting you. My emotional authority ruled and said, stop responding. And so I did. And my mental, like my wanting to sort it out mentally, wanting to make a conscious choice by factoring it through my mental processes laid a guilt trip on me for like 2 months that was like, why are we doing this? I don't understand. My mental process didn't understand. Why are we just ghosting? I didn't even say anything to her. I just cut off all contact. I just closed the window on that relationship and let it go. And I felt guilty for a solid 2 months of, this is what's true for me. This is I said, because I realized I'm not figuring out emotionally what's true for me. So I let myself do that. And what was true was, you need to let go of this friend. But I don't want to. I don't want to, but I need to, because that's my truth. And so that was step one, was letting go of the toxic friend. My inner authorities ruled and said, you and her aren't going to be friends, at least for this next little while. I can't speak to the future. It's been about 8 months. Scooby's got to leave. it's been about 8 months since I cut off contact with her. And at this point, there's only forward. There's not any pull to rekindle that at this point. But that was step one. When I let myself really feel for my truth, the first thing it had me do was eliminate this friendship from my life. Okay. So that was basically quarter one of this year, was realizing that I wasn't letting myself know my truth, and then letting myself know my truth. Oh, freaked me out. Oh my God. Thought it's a spirit moving in front of the camera. It was a fly. It's okay. Don't worry. Um, so yeah, that was Q1. I cut off contact with that friend. Beginning of Q2, April 1st, 1 o'clock in the morning, like literally the beginning of Q2, my grandma passed away, my dad's mom. And timing, right? Divine timing. Because at that point, I was 3 months into a practice of letting myself feel for my emotional clarity, like move in the rhythm of my emotional clarity. When I am waiting for emotional clarity, that's what I'm doing. I'm resting. I'm re-energizing myself. I'm focusing on my self-care. I'm allowing emotional clarity to come. And when she died, I had a spiritual shift that really, really stirred up the dust in my emotional clarity. Like there was no clarity. There was an utter lack of clarity. There was immersion in my new spiritual shift. And I did not understand. I was not well versed. I was completely plucked up out of one way of being and plopped into another way of being. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful in the unfolding of getting to witness it. But waiting for emotional clarity took about 3 months. So that was Q2. I took naps, I rested, I ghosted the rest of my friends, all of them. I didn't break up with Dolly, my girlfriend. We stayed together during that time, but we very, very rarely saw each other and very rarely talked. And that is like a whole nother story for another day. She had the grace to grant me that time to wait for my own emotional clarity. And it's probably like the single most powerful act of love I've ever received. Was that while I was planted in my bed for 3 months, binging Netflix and eating and sleeping and Netflix and eating and sleeping. And that was basically what I did for 3 months. Because mind you, I worked 2 days a week at that point. And even on those 2 days, it was like 4 to 5 hours a day. So for the rest of the time, I was in my bed, kind of like energetically hospitalized, like waiting for emotional clarity that took 3 months to form. So at the end of that, at the end of that emotional clarity, all of that dust getting triggered by my grandma's passing into the non-physical and her energy merging with mine. That's what it was that triggered this spiritual shift. And I received that from a place of knowing that I wasn't going to move with it until I received emotional clarity. So I'm going to wait. I feel like resting. I don't feel emotionally clear or inspired. I feel like resting. That was my prognosis every morning for about 90 to 100 days. I just stayed in the bed. I went and made the coffee and got back in the bed. 15 minutes later, when the coffee's done, because I have like an ancient coffee pot that I refuse to part with, I go get a cup of coffee and I get back in the bed. And I get my journal and I journal in the bed. And when I'm done doing my morning time, which was like my self-care, my gratitude, I still did all of that. I was still very grateful for the fact that I was giving myself this time, even if there was like literally nothing else going on. I let myself disconnect long enough to find my own emotional clarity. And it eventually was clear. And I feel like a totally different person coming out of that 3-month hibernation, away from my life, away from every influence that I could possibly cut off. I did. Um, in every instant, I asked myself, what is it that I feel like doing right now? And then I did it. And what I felt like doing was taking a nap. So that's 90% of what I did was rest. I slept, I watched the entire Criminal Minds series, all seasons. You have to go to Hulu to get the most recent ones, but I did. Watched through the whole series like twice. There's like 15 seasons, I think, maybe more. And then when I got tired of that, after watching that series a couple times, I watched the Dexter series like 5 times. That's my idea of relaxation, is binging on serial killer stuff. So there's a fun fact for you. Um, my favorite podcast is My Favorite Murder by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. So it's relaxing to me to study deviant behavior of the human race, because my golly, it's deep and vast. And I'm fascinated by the highs and the lows of what humans are capable of. So that's what I did for 3 months, was rested and watched that stuff. And I didn't work. I made very little attempt at work, and I let that happen. I let emotional clarity happen. I trusted that this is the way. I have to wait for emotional clarity. My life doesn't work if I don't wait for emotional clarity. I get off my path when I try to decide without waiting for emotional clarity. And I think Q2 was about, how badly do you want your emotional clarity? Because are you willing to wait on it for 90 days? Are you willing to let go and detach from everything in life for as long as it takes? Are you willing to do that? I mean, I definitely was in the beginning. I can't say that after 30 days or so, I was like, how long am I going to be in the bed? How long is this going to go on? Because my golly, like, this is a lot of rest. This is really taking its sweet time here. So, okay. So I rested and I waited for emotional clarity to come. And when it did, it hit like a thunderbolt, like a lightning strike, like a lightning storm of inspiration. That at that point, it was about mid-July, and there for like 2 months, I made a podcast episode, at least one, if not more than that, probably every single day. I had so much clarity, so much inspiration, that every day for hours I was creating, I was making, I was just putting more and more, like every day, every day. And after spending 3 months not creating and just resting and just letting myself detach from every person and everything, every responsibility, every obligation, I let it all go. And a couple of them turned out to be grenades that I should have kept. Well, should have, right? That in me not holding on to them, in me not holding them shut, when I let it go, it exploded. And that needed to happen, I think, like a couple of them though, like I let them go and nothing happened. Like I was holding on to all these obligations, all these people, thinking they were all live grenades, that if I didn't hold on to all of this stuff, that it was all going to explode and I was going to be demolished with it. And in reality, I let it all go. And I think maybe one exploded, like this friendship didn't even make it through the 3 months. Like it just didn't make it. She couldn't take it. She couldn't take the detachment and demanded that I stop it. And what are you gonna do? Like that was in that moment, I'm sitting here in my hibernation, waiting for emotional clarity. And trust me, I'm number one in line to get to be frustrated that it's taking so long. So what is your frustration? Like, you're not the one that's over there with like total blank slate, not knowing what's coming next. And so I emailed her back, and I used that as an opportunity to feel into not necessarily like my largest truth of who I am and what I'm doing here, which I'm always leaning for that. But here's my truth of this moment. And I was totally detached from how she would receive it. And I 100% reached for what felt authentically true to me. And I channeled that wrapped in love as a response to her. And the act of not caving to her, that grenade exploding, like I didn't throw myself back on it. I can't figure out where the heck it even is. Okay. I didn't cave to that. I stood like a tree, like inside my authentic self, and I gave her my emotional truth. And that was brand new territory. In that exchange, I somewhat witnessed the healing that was happening, that was underway. Like, I hadn't gotten to the end of it yet, but I was able to not cave to her emotions and stay strong in my own. And that was like, like a first in my whole life. So even before it was over, I could see the signs of, this is doing something. This is absolutely transforming me. I felt very much like the caterpillar that had gone into the cocoon, and the caterpillar has to dissolve. The caterpillar dissolves into goo. The caterpillar it's not a caterpillar inside a cocoon, it's goo inside a cocoon. So my friend reaching out to me, expecting to, like, demanding the caterpillar to come back out, I'm like, it's too late for that. I'm already goo. So at this point, the only thing I have is to stay and become a butterfly. And so that's what I did. And I told her, I'm goo. I'm goo. There's nothing in here. There's no caterpillar in here. And so that felt really good to honor that. Like, it helped me reconnect to the real reason that I was even in the cocoon to begin with, because I want to live my life according to my own authentic self. I want to speak my truth. I want to shine my weird light out into the universe so that people who resonate with my light can find me and can be a part of my space, and we can enjoy each other. And I want that so much. And it really makes total sense that a caterpillar was never going to manifest that. That's a butterfly's manifestation, to shine your light out into the world and to have your fellow butterflies come and gather around you, and for all of you to go flapping about joyfully, floating about in the universe, enjoying each other's presence. And it helped me anchor back into, I was absolutely transforming. And while I couldn't yet see my butterfly self, I knew that I was goo. So I knew, like, I'm at least not what I once was. And what's coming next, I don't know. I don't get to know that. That's emotional authority working itself out in our subconscious with our higher selves. So there's a trust in those emotions that I've been building. That was finding Abraham and studying law of attraction and understanding our emotional guidance and how it points us towards manifesting the life of our dreams. Learning to trust my emotions took like 5 years before I could ever even come to this place of wanting to speak my truth and realizing, like, oh shit, I gotta let my emotional clarity settle before I even know what my truth is. And so when I came out, I feel like I was the butterfly. During the 3-month hibernation is when the name Owning Authenticity was channeled. In a random journaling session, I was writing about this act of standing in my truth. And the shift that happened, like once I learned that emotional clarity was how I was going to know what my truth was to be able to speak it, as soon as I learned how to feel my emotional authority, like, I hate to say, but like it basically became irrelevant to speak it out loud. I realized like it has nothing to do with saying it to another person. It's about standing in it and being it, right? Like knowing your truth so you can be it, not so you can speak it. And I realized like after I started getting clear on these emotional authority things, and like the friend that it had me ghost right off the bat is a perfect example of like I realized that it was my shadow self, it was my fears that had forced my authentic self down in the first place. Like I was afraid of what people would think. I was afraid that if I let go of these grenades that they're going to explode. And all of those things were keeping me stuck in this place of responding to other people's energy instead of honoring my own, instead of letting my emotional authority be my guide. And in this process of going through the hibernation and allowing that transformation to take place where I don't move without my emotional authority. It can take as long as it wants. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to follow my emotional authority. So if it hasn't spoken yet, then it's time to rest, is how I interpret it. It's time for self-care. It's time for pampering yourself and indulging and spending 3 months watching Criminal Minds and Dexter. So it's like that. To me, owning authenticity, like I said, it's like my lifestyle. I don't just want to know my authentic self. I don't just want to speak it out loud. I want to live it. I want to experience my authentic self fully aligned with how I'm designed and who my soul came forward intending to be. I want to live that life. I don't just want to be able to say it out loud. I want to be able to stand in it and to be it. And through this process, I've realized, like, on a deep level, the main thing that was stopping me from doing this was caring what other people would think about my authentic self. You know, like basically shame and fear of rejection, fear of disconnection. I was more worried about staying connected to, you know, whoever it was in my life than honoring my own emotional authority, my own soul level intention for this incarnation. You know, like our soul works hard to line everything up, the perfect path with the perfect skills, the perfect mix of energies to give us the perfect chance to do what our soul came to do. And I've spent a lot of time following the energy of other people. And owning authenticity for me is about blind faith in being who you were born to be. You know, what is your authentic truth? Whatever your inner authority, however that works. And human design is a great place to go if you're not practicing following your inner authority, because there's lots of different kinds. Mine just happens to be emotional, and I had kind of already felt that. But yeah, that's one concept in human design I would highly recommend if you're looking to like kind of get on this path yourself of owning your own authenticity. Every single thing that I put on this channel, that's a truck. That shows you how many cars go by my house. That's the first car since I've been on this video. Uh, No, I was saying something. Mm. Everything I put on this channel, my goal is to not just be talking to talk. I want to express my authenticity, not in a way that says, these are the rules and here's my guide for how you're going to have a happy life. That's like not that's like the last thing that I would want you to take away. My goal, my like joy, my passion in life is hooking people up with their own inner authority, their own inner power. Maybe acting as training wheels for a person standing upright, balanced on their own momentum. And I want to be there as support for figuring out what does it take to live that life. You know, this has been my experience of moving through this process, but every single person is coming from a different perspective, and there's going to be a unique unfolding for each of us. And in my work one-on-one with people, that's ultimately my goal, is to help shine a light on their authentic truth, whatever that is for them. It doesn't have to look anything like mine. It's very much a truth finding mission, whatever that looks like for each of us individually. And owning authenticity to me is about each of us living the lives our individual soul intended. So that means letting go of a lot of things. And I think that's what my process showed me, was you have to let go of all the things that are keeping you stuck not doing that. So chances are, you know, if you're not living your full authentic truth right now, chances are there are things in your life that are keeping you stuck in a place of not doing that. And then those will be the first things you'll have to let go of. And all I can say from someone who didn't know that going into it, I went into it with more blind trust in, I have no idea what the path is going to hold, but I know at the end of it that I'm going to come out the other side a more authentic version of myself, a more confident version of myself, a more accepting version of myself and my truth, my unique, weird energy. I didn't know exactly what I was going to find, but I knew it was going to be closer to my authentic self. And that, if I was going to point you towards one thing to keep in mind as you go through this, it would be that, to use that as a touchstone to say, I know I'm walking towards my own authentic self. So even when there are hard things that come up where maybe you have to let go of something, or there's a fear that's coming up inside of you, maybe it's not an external thing that you have to let go of. Maybe it's an internal fear. Like my fear of caring what people think about me, that has had to, I mean, not that I'm free from that. Like I said, I'm very sensitive, but it's definitely gotten a lot more healed in this process. So, and I trust that'll continue as I continue practicing this year of speaking truth. I have another few months to go on this journey, so I know it's not over yet. But it has already yielded such a beautiful transformation in my willingness to open my mouth and speak and have something to say, have something that means something to me. Like, I realize that with emotional authority, and if you have emotional authority, which 50% of people do, if that's who you are, letting your emotions be your guide, you find your place on the perfect path at the perfect time, and you meet the perfect people with the perfect opportunities and the perfect rendezvous. And this video is one example of I'm just bebopping along, living my life happily ever after. And my friend on the community asked a question about why did you name your channel this? And it feels like after 4 days of thinking about it, it feels like the perfect place, perfect time to make this video and answer that question for myself and for others. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, all I ever have is my own experience. And I want to share about my experience as an example that, you know, if there's something in there that helps you work a piece of your stuff loose, great, more power to you. But never in a way where it sounds like or where it feels like I'm saying this is the path for everyone. Um, I want to demonstrate what it looks like to lean into our inner authority and the crazy twists and turns that we might find as we undertake that journey. So that is what you can expect to find on this channel. And if you've made it to this point listening, I am so glad that you're here. You are in exactly the right place. You're welcome to reach out to me either through the comments on this video or by sending me an email. And if you wanted to reach out to Stella, she'd love that too. So thanks so much for listening. Until next time, dear friends, you take good care.